your pizza boxes upside down?
I'll show you. Watch this. You make them, you put them upside down, first of all, so no dirt gets in them. It's more sanitary. And second of all, see? Bada boom, because we're Italian and we're short, we can't reach. Ta-da! Capiche?
Is that chicken parm?
Chicken, fresh mozzarella, fresh sliced tomato, fresh basil, salt, pepper, a balsamic vinegar, extra virgin olive oil, and my mother made me some chicory on the side here.
Hey, my name is San Natale, and I'm really excited for this guest tonight. He's a dynamite individual. His name is Ritchie Torres. He's a congressman, and he in city council, and he's been coming here for quite a long time. And I can wait for him to talk to him. We know Ritchie that one day he show up here, and somebody else recognizes. He says, "Oh, that's a Ritchie, that's a Ritchie." So I asked them, I said, "Who's the general?" He said, "This is city council." I said, "He's so young." Yeah, he's a great guy. So since then, they've been coming here, and we became friends. I tried to some events. Matter of fact, one day I played "God Bless America" for Ritchie. So he's a great guy.
Good to see you. I appreciate that.
What's
Thank
going
you.
on, baby?
Good to see you. How are
Great
you?
to see you. Great to see you.
Yeah.
I love the blue.
I appreciate it.
Blue is my, it is my color. Red, blue, no, blue, light blue.
I
But
love
in fact, I fell in love with Pina, not because of her beauty, but she had a light silk blue dress. She looked fantastic. Pina, you remember when we danced, you had a blue dress? Woo! You look excited. Very excited. So how's everything? How's everything?
I'm happiest when I'm in the Bronx. I have some free time from DC.
That's beautiful,
So-
beautiful.
We call it a district work week.
District over, you know. So that means time off.
Not time off, but I'm working here in the Bronx instead of DC.
Oh, you work here.
There's no such thing as time off.
I hate
Politics.
That. I hate that. I hate that. So, Ritchie, you gonna have a slice? The classic slice. So that what do you drink?
Ginger ale?
Ginger, like I don't know.
I'm a creature of habit.
Yeah. Pina, a slice and ginger ale for Mr. Torres, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bon appetit.
Thank you. I always. Whenever I meet a friend who graduated from Fordham University, I asked them, "Have you ever heard of Pugsley?" They said, "Of course." And they said, "You know Sal, of course." So like, you leave an impression on everyone.
Yeah.
Like everyone remembers you.
So I know you're Bronx person, and you love the Bronx. But where did you grow up, Ritchie?
So I was born and raised in the Bronx, in a public housing development known as Drogsneck Houses. I was raised by a single mother who raised about 3 of us on minimum wage, which in the 1990s was about $4.25 an hour. And growing up in public housing was rough because I was living in conditions of mold and mildew, leaks and lead, without consistent heat and hot water in the winter. I often tell people that my life is something of a metaphor because I grew up right across the street from what ultimately became Trump Golf Course.
Oh my God.
And as the golf course was undergoing construction, it actually unleashed a skunk infestation. So I tell people I've been smelling the stench of Donald Trump well before he became president. And but I loved my life in Drogsneck Houses.
That's great. So how old were you? What age were you?
So I lived in public housing until I was 18.
18.
But the Bronx is the only home I've ever known. I've never lived anywhere outside the Bronx.
When did you decide to become a politician?
It has to do with my experience in public housing. So in New York City, public housing has been so chronically underfunded that it has a capital need of $40 billion in counting. It would take $40 billion to bring public housing into a state of good repair. So there are children in public housing who have been poisoned by lead because of federal defunding. There are senior citizens who are living with the cold of winter without with their boilers breaking down because of federal disinvestment. You know, asthmatics who were struggling to breathe because of leaking and molded conditions. And as I saw the conditions get worse every day in my own life, you know, right across the street, the city had invested more than $100 million to build a golf course, ultimately named after Donald Trump. And I remember asking myself at the time, what does it say about our society that we're willing to put more money into a golf course than into the homes of poor people of color in places like the Rock's Neck houses? And so I got my start in politics as a housing organizer. And then eventually I took the leap of faith and ran for public office. I was only 24, had no deep pockets, no ties to the party machine in the Bronx. But I came to realize a council district has about 160,000 people. But I kid you not, only 6,000 people vote in a council district in the central Bronx or in the South Bronx. And I said to myself, I can knock on 6,000 doors. And so I spent a whole year doing nothing but knocking on doors. I went into people's homes, I heard their stories, and I won my first campaign on the strength of door-to-door, face-to-face campaigning. I became the youngest elected official in New York City. But I remember when I first ran, I was so anxious about public speaking.
Yeah.
That I would drink a glass of wine every day to calm my nerves.
I hear that.
It's been said that the fear of public speaking is greater even than the fear of death.
Yeah. That's like I said the other day when we were talking, like 3 major fears that people have is height, loud noise, and public speaking and speaking to people.
I will tell you, I'm most afraid of heights. So I have a fear of heights.
Yeah.
I used to have a fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
But practice makes
Yeah,
perfect,
they're
and over time.
Yeah. It's like you say, you remember when I asked you to give me a word of wisdom? That helped me a lot. Thank you very much. I asked you.
I remember the quote actually. It was Friedrich Nietzsche. That
no.
which does not kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, you said, if it won't kill you, it will make you stronger. As a matter of fact, I've been through some situations where I hate that before, but I never, until you said, and then I used it. Helped me a lot. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's it. If it don't kill you, it will make you stronger.
Yeah, not sure if you know this. I ran when I was 24.
Yeah.
I became a council member when I was 25.
Yeah.
I just turned 35, which means that I've known you for 10 years.
Wow.
Because you've known me since the beginning of my political career.
So what
So
are
for 10 years I've been eating your pizza.
That's
I've been
great.
one of your most loyal
that's why
customers.
he's such a good-looking guy. Listen, what is it?
Although I no longer have the metabolism that I did 10 years ago. So that's.
What are the most accomplishments? Something that you're proud of that you, as a city council, that you did, like you.
So, I entered the city council with a passion for public housing.
Yeah.
Like advocating for people who are living in some of the worst housing conditions in public housing. And when I was in the council, I became the chair of the public housing committee. And I said to myself, the city council normally holds hearings at City Hall. But I thought, why not bring government directly to the people? Why not hold a public housing hearing in a public housing development? It would be a powerful example of bringing government directly to the people.
Right there.
And I came to realize that there were a number of public housing developments that had been ravaged by Superstorm Sandy back in 2012. And some of those developments had only temporary boilers, no permanent boilers. And those temporary boilers were breaking down. Tenants were freezing in their apartments. And so we brought a public housing hearing to a public housing development that had been ravaged by Superstorm Sandy. And instead of having the government testify first, we had the tenants testify and tell their story. And there was one tenant who testified that she was so cold in her apartment that she left her oven on, risking exposure to carbon monoxide, death from carbon monoxide exposure, because she was so desperate for heat.
Yeah.
And these stories were so powerful that the next day
It came from the actual people.
Came from the people. Like there's no substitute from hearing directly from the people.
Yeah.
And directly from their stories of suffering. And it was covered by the press. And so the next day, Senator Chuck Schumer reaches out to the New York City Housing Authority, which manages public housing, and asked how he could be helpful. And within a month of that hearing and phone call, FEMA the federal government finally agreed to provide $3 billion to public housing in New York City, which at the time was the largest FEMA grant in the history of New York City. The lesson learned is that you can use your platform to have a much greater impact than you could possibly imagine.
So you feel that you saw the need and you fulfilled.
I feel like I gave voice to the voiceless.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
That I told the story of poor people in public housing.
So Richie, this is a monumental question. I know it's a big step. What happened from city council to become congressman? What was the step up? What was the motive or the reason, the action?
It might. So I was term limited as a council member. I was in my second and final term as a council member. And it might shock you, but I was seriously considering retiring from politics.
Yeah.
And finding something new to do. And my chief of staff, Angel Vasquez, said you should seriously consider a run for Congress. And I said, Angel, running for Congress is a huge leap from running for the city council. When you're running for Congress, you have to have connections, you have to raise millions of dollars. Like, I've never done anything like that in my life.
Unless you wanted to be a pizza man.
I mean, the only person who would vote for me is Sal. And he said, Ritchie, there's a whole universe of people who want to support a public servant like you. You just have to find them. And so we took the leap of faith and we found them.
Yeah.
And I came to realize that there was a limit to what I could do at the local level.
Yes.
That if you want to have a systemic impact in improving people's lives, you have to be in Washington, D.C., because that's where the rules are set, that's where the purse strings are held, that's where the future of the country is largely determined. And so I ran for Congress at the encouragement of my chief of staff, and based on a belief that in order to be a true agent for change, you have to be in Washington, D.C.
What was your mission that brought you to congressman? What was the thing that you talked about that you believed that was there to make you?
I ran on my background as a tenant organizer and as a fighter for the Bronx. Well, my message to the people of the Bronx is I'm going to fight for you because I am one of you. Like, I don't fit into the typical profile of a member of Congress. I don't have a net worth of $1 million. But what I bring to the table is lived experience. I know what it's like to struggle with food insecurity and housing insecurity. I know what it's like to grow up in poverty. I know what it's like to have family entangled with the criminal justice system. And so those experiences inform what I do as a public servant, and it motivates me to fight for change for the Bronx. Very few people thought I would win. You were one of the few people who thought I would win. But very few people thought I would win because I was running against the most powerful name in Bronx politics. And there was a sense that a young man like me had no chance of winning a congressional seat. And in the end, not only did I win, but I won decisively. I won by double digits in a race of about 10 candidates. And when people ask me, how did you win? My sense is most of the voters in the Bronx are actually older women at or above the age of 55. Like, females represent about 65% of the electorate. And I suspect that the mothers and grandmothers of the South Bronx saw in me their own child and grandchild, saw in me the embodiment of their highest aspirations and hopes for their own children and grandchildren. And that's a powerful connection.
That's a very powerful
to forge.
And you had it when you talk, when you open your mouth, the word, they come from the heart. They don't come from substance and things like that. Whatever you say comes from hand, and that's a contagious. And especially what comes in is a conviction, something that you believe in, what you're doing, and you believe that you do the right thing. I feel
like I'm
powerful.
the luckiest person on earth.
Because you're a nice person.
I appreciate that. Every time I'm in the Capitol,
Yeah.
I cannot help but pinch myself. I cannot help but feel the weight of history on my shoulders.
I was so happy when you give us the plaque, how do you call that?
Proclamation?
Proclamation.
Yeah, as a city council.
And I said, oh
Well, I
my
gave
God,
you
look,
a
city
council
council.
proclamation.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to give you a congressional proclamation.
That's great. That was great. You made me happy. So you making people feel good. You know,
But-
fulfill the need, and you be happy. That's great.
You know,
That's great.
15 years ago, about 15 years ago, I had dropped out of college. I found myself struggling with depression. I was abusing substances. There were moments when I thought of taking my own life because I felt as if the world around me had collapsed. And I never thought in my wildest dreams, 7 years later, I would become the youngest elected official in America's largest city. And today I would be a United States congressman. So if people ask me, what does it feel like to be a congressman? I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. That my life has been a journey from public housing in the Bronx to the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Like, only in America is that story possible.
Yeah. I kind of tell you the truth. Right this very moment, I kind of feel a little bit of that. And I'm thinking, from a little town in Sicily, beautiful little town in Sicily. Here I am in New York. I don't even speak English and talk to a congressman. That's wild. That's wild.
I'm your friend, not just your congressman.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's I know.
You've been there from day one.
I know how you feel. I know how you feel. So, Ritchie, how was the pizza?
It's the best.
That's a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, before I bring you in and then make a pizza and have some good time inside there, what is happened right now in the Bronx? That something that you want to bring to Washington and address to them that you want to talk about it?
A common concern that I've heard is public safety. I think people live in fear of violence, and the South Bronx, I represent what's often said to be the poorest congressional district in America, and it's become ground zero for gun violence. Like, every day we hear a shooting. And to put it in a global context, among high-income countries, America is the only country in the world that has an epidemic of gun violence and mass shootings. And the reason is simple. We have more guns than everyone else, and we have less regulation of those guns. We have flooded our streets with weapons of mass destruction. And you have young people who are dying at the hands of gun violence. And not only are people carrying more guns than ever before, but you have people manufacturing guns in their home. You can purchase ghost guns, gun components online, and assemble them into fully functioning guns using 3D printers. And this, to me, is complete insanity. Like, in a rational world, every gun would be safely stored and registered. Every gun owner would be licensed and professionally trained. And every gun sale would be subject to a background check. Like, what we need is common sense gun safety so that we can protect our children from gun violence. There was a time when gang disputes were resolved with the fist.
Fist fights.
And now gang disputes are resolved with guns. So guns will take a violent situation and make it deadly.
Yeah. In Italy, there was a case that here happens a lot. The guy dirty his shoes, and the guy shot him. Over here, you stop somebody, you beep the horn, the guy comes and shoots you. That's crazy. So you want to go in Washington and talk about what do you think that should be done?
We need national standards of gun safety, and let me be clear. I'm not suggesting that there should be no guns. I mean, take the automobile.
Yeah.
Automobiles are dangerous.
Yeah.
And so we have set standards to regulate automobiles, to make them safer. And as a result, we've seen a dramatic decline in the number of car accidents. There were far more car accidents nearly a century ago than there are today because of safety standards.
Yeah.
We need the same for guns. Like automobiles, guns are dangerous, but we need standards to make them safer so that fewer people are being shot and are losing their lives.
Let's hope this happens because
It's common sense.
Yeah.
But what's often lacking in politics is common sense.
Educated people have.
You need not be educated. All you need is common sense to know that we should regulate our guns.
Common sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
Common
take a
sense.
PhD to know that we
Yeah,
should
no,
regulate
no,
guns.
yeah. And many other cases. Common sense. There is
Yeah.
common sense. It's obvious that if the thing is that the kids, 12, 13 years old,
Yeah.
go to school, carry a gun, where they get it from.
And the most
where they get it.
heartbreaking cases are those of a 1-year-old or 2-year-old who's struck by a stray bullet. Like, no one should have to live in a community where your child,
Yeah.
a 1-year-old child, is struck by a stray bullet.
Yeah.
Like, there should be no world in which that is remotely acceptable.
It's a tough.
And I've said to my colleagues, my Republican colleagues who oppose gun safety, if you're not here to protect children, then what are you here for? Like, if we're not here for public safety, then you have no business being in public service. You have no business being in Congress. I truly believe that.
I hear you. So, Ritchie, I really appreciate taking your time off
Of course.
to be with us. Thank you for
feeding
your
me.
wisdom, for your
Thank you for feeding me with
Thank
both
you for-
food and friendship, so,
That's the least
and faith.
That's the least we can
Yes.
do for you. That's the least we can do for you. So, and let's go inside. Let's go have fun. I want to show you something inside. But let them put the sauce and draw hard in the middle like this.
Boop, right in the middle.
You ready?
Now start in the middle, little circles, and gradually get bigger and bigger. Little circles, bigger, bigger. Push down a little bit. Nice and gentle, easy, easy. What did the pizza do to you? Nice and easy, nice and
Life
easy.
is short.
Nice and easy.
I'm a man of urgency.
But
so.
you gotta get bigger. You get like the circle needs to get bigger or no? You gotta otherwise you'll be here all day at the same spot.
Bigger, go outside. Go more.
Okay.
Good,
All
good.
right. Now, do a heart in the middle. Let me see you draw a heart in the middle. There we go. You see that? That's made with love. Now, put that down.
Can I do an X like Bronx?
Whatever you want. Put BX. Do whatever you want to do.
The X. That's the...
And now, with two hands, sprinkle a little cheese all over. Don't go
Show
crazy.
is done, Richie. Show is done.
Yes,
I think he's taking that one home.
I think so too. He's looking at putting some crazy extra cheese on there, huh? Cheese is expensive, Richie.
Yeah.
I'll finish it up for you. Okay, dokie. Carry on.
Beautiful. So,
All right, prepare for the gong.
you want to give a shot at the guy?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know if you remember. This is like if you take a picture. But when you do people, I let it take a picture because it's too much to read.
Yeah.
But they read this aloud. See, read this aloud, Richie, and read this aloud. That's what I'm making people
The philosophy
do.
of the guy.
Yeah, philosophy of the guy. Go ahead. Nice and loud.
Philosophy of the gong. You associate something subconsciously that you really want in life with the sound of the gong. So that when you think about the gong, you think about what you want to achieve, and later in life, based on what you wished, you will know whether you achieved, whether you gave up, or whether you're still striving for it.
Beautiful. No, this is it.
Capture the spirit of the moment and unleash your own potentials. Follow your heart and don't let anybody or anything steal your dreams. If you have a song to sing, sing it. If you have a bell to ring, ring it. If you have a story to tell, tell it. Honor your parents, love yourself, and everybody else.
Hallelujah. That's great.
Not too hard, right?
Richie, we love you.
I appreciate
You're
it.
a great person. You make a history and you make a beautiful history.
Well, thank you for the
very
food
much.
and thank you for the friendship.
Thank
so.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.